Hi everyone. So I was doing research for another video actually, and I came across this Reddit thread from a few years ago called "EarthBound is a really bad game." And I thought, I was just doing research and I came across it and I started reading some of the things on it, and I just thought I would go through this because it has some very interesting takes that I would like to just respond to. This video is going to be pretty lightly edited, so this is a kind of one-off thing. And I want to make it clear that some of the arguments presented here I actually am going to be taking a deeper dive into in a future video. EarthBound is a really bad game. It's grind heavy. I don't know about grind heavy. Now, EarthBound's not a perfect game, especially in regards to balance. But I don't know, I think once you're outside of one net, the grinding really lightens up. I do think it is a pretty unfortunate thing that it is a little bit grind heavy in the beginning, and I think that does end up driving a lot of people off from it because they think that the whole game will be like that, but frankly it's just not like that. Has little to no plot. Well, now we're getting into pacing. EarthBound very much has a plot, are you kidding me? Ness is on a mission with his friends to stop an intergalactic / interdimensional threat, and every plot point you come to is driving towards that point. The reason it might feel like it's little and far between is because it's not all directly connected to Ness fighting Gygas, but nonetheless every step of the way is a step towards Gygas. Bland characters, I think it depends who you're referring to. It's hard to defend the main cast. I've been through this before, but I do think it's one of the weakest parts of the game, and in this respect I do somewhat agree. I feel by the time they finally give Ness a lot of depth, it's really, really late in the game. You're in the last hour and a half, 2 hours at that point. And the rest of the party has pretty little depth as well. While they're all given character moments, they're just so few and far between, especially in comparison to Mother 3, which constantly has character moments. I find Porky to be a pretty engaging character though. And ugly graphics. Oh my gosh, is this a game reviewer from the 90s? Goodness. Now we're really getting into the subjective portion of this. I guess EarthBound's not perfect visually, but I think it's a very good looking game. I don't know if this is what this guy's arguing, so I'm not gonna try to put words in his mouth, but it does kind of come across to me like pixel art equals ugly or bad. And it's simply a stylistic choice, especially in a time when all games were pixel based. I don't know, I think the game holds up remarkably well. The color palette's very pretty, and while there are certainly areas that aren't as great looking as others, particularly the abundance of caves that, they tend to be very, very brown, I think, your main hub worlds are pretty gorgeous, honestly. And the final area of the game with the Cave of the Past and the final path leading up to Gygas looks phenomenal. Every area is pretty distinct from one another. I think it's, I don't know, I disagree. I think I would need to know more about what they mean. Every time I play it, I feel like I'm being forced to do so. Okay, well that's that has nothing to do with your argument. Nothing about it is fun or original at all. Fun's very subjective, that's very much tailored to just the kind of games you enjoy. Perhaps you just don't like RPGs, dude. And if you do and you still just don't enjoy EarthBound, I understand it does have some balance issues. Buffs and debuffs are pretty worthless in this game. I think particularly when you get into the later fights, the battles have a lot of drama because of the rolling health meter. I think it adds a lot of depth to the gameplay, even if it's not perfectly implemented. But I get though that, especially if you didn't have a walkthrough or something going through, it's very easy to get lost and not know what to do. But even though EarthBound does kind of give you a runaround of places to go, you're constantly going back and forth, I wouldn't say it's mega tedious. If you talk to enough people, you'll eventually figure out where to go, so I don't know what he's saying this in regards to. As for originality, I just don't know how you can say that. Dungeon Man's one of the most creative ideas of flipping a game mechanic on its head I've ever seen. I think that's amazing. The only notable part of the game is Gygas, and it's only notable because it totally flips the themes of the game on its head with absolutely zero build-up. I disagree with the build-up. Yeah, I mean, you can find several NPCs throughout the game talking about Gygas, and pretty much every major story beat has a lot divulged about him. I do think it's very notable because it flips everything that you know about the game on its head at the very end. But I mean, you even get build-up atmospherically in the last, 2 hours of the game especially. The entire Cave of the Past, I don't know. I think they might be confusing build-up with ambiguity, because a lot of people talk about Gygas a lot in the game, but the players never let known exactly what Gygas is, and I think that's very intentional because it's meant to be, in my analysis of the game, is meant to be sort of a demonic evil force akin to like the devil or something, who just has kind of an evil influence on the world. And you do have to take into account that this is a sequel to a game, so if you didn't play Mother 1, you're not going to have as good of a grasp on Gygas as others would. But wait, EarthBound was one of the first examples of sampling music in a game. Yes, thank you, EarthBound, for pioneering the art of stealing other people's music without permission or knowledge. I rest my case. Oh boy, I just made a whole video of talking about how the sampling is done in a way that transforms it, so I'm not gonna try to go mega in-depth on this, and I'll link that video in the description. But I don't know, you shouldn't be using EarthBound being one of the first examples of sampling music in a game as a defense of why something's good. That's simply just part of the experience, so I disagree with that being an argument for why the game's good. My argument for why the sampling adds and enhances the experience is because of how it transforms it and more connects the player to the world. In a time where fantasy games were primarily fantasy-based, like Final Fantasy, Legend of Zelda had RPG elements, whereas EarthBound and Mother looked like they could take place, you know, in the neighborhood next door. I think you need that sort of sampling just to connect the player more to the world. And even in regards to the sampling, it's not like it's just the whole song stolen, it's just like little parts of it. As for without permission or knowledge, I don't know enough to say if that's the case or not. So I'm just going to leave that as it lies. Anyway, that's just my takeaway from this just short post. I'm not trying to destroy this guy or start beef or anything, you know, this is from 3 years ago. It's important when you're building an argument, especially when you're gonna do one that's kind of a hot take like this, to be able to build it up with some sort of backing, and they don't really support any of their arguments, which I think is the problem. Hey, if you ever see this video, guy, I'm willing to talk to you about this, and I hope you give the game another shot because, I don't know, not everything connects with everyone, and that's fine. But I think if you're going to go out of your way to try to explain why you don't like something, you need to build your case up a little bit better. Anyways, that's it. Thank you all for watching. Take it easy.